articles announcing the nominations led with their faces plastered alongside headlines that basically boiled down to, what is this, 1937?
So, I woke up one morning and realized something about my wall of assorted movies. I have a lot of director's cuts in my collection. Now, I know that there's been something of a resurgence online regarding certain fandoms vehemently demanding the return of certain filmmakers' quote-unquote original visions for their stories, and yes, I'm tangentially connecting the Snyder Cut to this topic very briefly, even though I'm tired of hearing about it too. It kinda can't be helped. Don't at me, please. Anyways, all I can think of in response to this is that this is nothing new. There's always been the curiosity and demand for the fuller, unfiltered versions of movies. It's just that the online platforms have simply made these voices more numbered and louder, for better or for worse. And with advancements in the technologies surrounding editing, restoration, and distribution, what was once a novelty is now a fairly standard and expected step in the marketing of big intellectual properties and franchises. Release a standard theatrical version of the film, and if there's a high enough demand, release the director's full vision for further brand promotion and a couple of extra bucks. So, what exactly are the reasonings behind releasing a director's cut to begin with? What exactly is entailed in a director's cut? And in a world where the most common accessibility of movies is via streaming services that dictate the film catalog that the public views, are director's cuts even special anymore? First off, I feel there's some misinterpretation of the idea of the director's cut in the current pop culture zeitgeist that needs to be addressed. The term itself is a pretty broad definition that varies on a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking though, director's cut doesn't always refer to the director's actual preferred whole version of the film. It's not even the initial step that kickstarts the film editing process. Typically, the first step is the assembly cut, or rough cut, that incorporates and arranges desired takes and shots from several production dailies into the preferred viewing order. Next comes the editor's cut, wherein the film's editor works either in tandem with the director's wishes or incorporates their own creative decisions with the assembly of shots to create a cohesive narrative. This version may actually run a lot longer than the final runtime. It's off of this version that final creative decisions from the director and their team can be made, such as pickup shots, correcting continuity errors, or excising scenes that are deemed unnecessary. From there, the studio and associated producers take over to approve a final cut that will be released to audiences in compliance with their desired rating, marketing, and different territory standards, which, yeah, we're seeing really isn't that great a thing for representation these days, but that's a completely different topic for another time. My God, Michael, stay on topic, will ya? So really, it's not common practice for the director to receive final say on the film. The director's cut is just one more step in the post-production turnaround that we'd probably be oblivious to as the audience if it wasn't for the fact that... Again, case-by-case basis, but heads can be butted in the final cut between the director and the studio over the grand scheme of the film. There may not be much creative conflict if the filmmaker isn't as established or was brought on specifically to enact the wishes of the studio from the get-go. Not to say they're not contributing original creative decisions to the project, but they tend to function more as a member of a larger team working towards a common end. And that can be perfectly fine. That's been Marvel's MO for 13 years, and they're crying all the way to the bank about it, I'll tell ya. But every once in a while, you'll get a creative that, whether they're right or wrong, will fight tooth and nail for their definitive vision or resist against efforts to refocus or alter the intent of the final piece. And, as mentioned before, the demand and transparency surrounding a project can create an audience for that particular version of the movie. And this is the realm in which the general perception of director's cuts could exist. I say could because, like everything else, movies are product. Artistic? Yes. Immersive? Sure. Emotionally or spiritually moving? Absolutely. But they also exist for financial and commercial gains. As much as creatives would like to say it's only for the art, the truth is it's also for getting paid and elevating profiles and portfolios. And the studios know it, as well as the appeal of something such as a director's cut could have for brands. It's made for some interesting cases, in which filmmakers claim the theatrical version of their movies are the director's cuts, and that the official releases of extended or uncut editions are simply another marketing ploy.
In that time, I've praised the original version 2 or 3 times. Never any dramatic changes, because I think the film that was completed at the time was pretty good. I've always been rather proud of it. But over the years, with the advent of tape and then, of course, now digital market, which is DVD, there have been a few adjustments and changes.
Sometimes the underdog filmmaker becomes the studio and releases versions of their films in accordance with their original intent, unhindered by the restrictions of outside influence. And that can either be more in-depth and rewarding as a viewing experience, or...
Please, that name for Oscar. Yes, I bet you have.
Sometimes a creative has a hard time letting go, and will keep coming back to the film over and over for the desire to get it right, which can be either insightful or exhausting, depending on the viewer's own vested interest in the filmmaking process. Sometimes the call to restore the original direction can be a return to form for a creative in need of further recognition for what they sacrifice in their work. Sometimes expansion of plot or character elements can offer a more cohesive whole. Sometimes it can just serve as a bonus element to a narrative that worked upon its initial release. And yes, sometimes it's a futile gesture to add more onto a narrative that wasn't that great to begin with. The designation of director's cut isn't automatically a seal of more prestigious quality. It's simply another state of being for a film with equal potential to be superior or inferior. So, if it's all essentially boiled down to corporate product with no guaranteed consistency, why the appeal? What's the point? Yes, films are corporate product meant to drive commerce as much as promote creativity. Yes, films are gateways for storytellers with potentially inflated egos to indulge in their best and worst tendencies as industry professionals. Yes, the superiority of one version of a movie over another is entirely subjective to the individual viewing it. But it is all still a contribution to our constantly expanding history with film. Whether it is the studio-mandated theatrical release, or the 47th cut of Blade Runner assembled by Ridley Scott on his iPhone, it is still re-examining and appreciating how far the art of filmmaking and storytelling has come. And in a world where accessibility to films is far more convenient, but the catalog is gradually becoming more uniform and on brand, it's important for narratives from different perspectives to find an outlet. Thank goodness for companies that not only reintroduce forgotten or overlooked selections from the past, but also work with filmmakers from all over the world and from all walks of life for a chance to promote their restored visions to a wider audience. And thank goodness for the gambles on re-examining an established film to determine if there is still potential in exploring it further. So yes, director's cuts, expanded cuts, special editions, whatever you choose to call them, they're still special. They're still interesting. And there's still an aspect of our continuing story with the motion picture that can inspire, innovate, and bring new stories and storytellers into the fray. Thank you all for watching. It's really great to get into these mini essays or editorials on a more regular basis, and I promise more fun stuff is coming soon. Please subscribe, like, all that good stuff, and maybe in the comments below let me know what are some of your favorite director's cuts or expanded cuts or special editions that you feel add new flourishes to established films.